I'm Chad Ruthermond,
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
and welcome to NOCLIP Pocket. Touching is good. Today, we're going to be talking about Kirby's Dream Land, which was developed by HAL Laboratory, published by Nintendo, and was released on the Game Boy in 1993. Kirby's Dream Land is a very basic type platformer, though. You just played it for, I assume, the first time?
Yes.
And I've played it 1,500 times over the course of my life. Kirby's Dream Land is a lot of the reason why I have like a soft spot for the Kirby series as a whole, because this was a game that I was able to play when I was very, very young, and it. Even though nowadays, like, I've sort of aged out of them, I still like to go to them and play them occasionally just for, like, I don't know if it's a nostalgic thing. I imagine it's sort of the same reason that you liked Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle.
Right.
The thing with Kirby games is that they're designed to be very, like, simplistic, and even though they've become more complicated as time goes on, this is probably as basic as it can get, being the first one.
Yeah, it's so basic that I don't even really know what to think of it. Like, as somebody playing it for the first time now, is I knew it by reputation to be a simple and easy game, but it was even simpler and easier than I expected. And I think I'm still kind of processing it. Because, like, in some ways, it does feel, like, really smooth to control and kind of, like, something intuitive about it that other games of the time kind of lacked. But then, on the other hand, like, it feels like it doesn't really have, like, level design. It just kind of feels like they threw something together in a level editor. And, like, I don't know, there's some really weak spots and some really strong spots, and it's just weird to me that this series is like became as popular as it is, with this being the starting point,
Like the jumping up.
Yeah.
So the purpose, like the ways that they made this game simple, are mostly, I don't know, like you can boil it down to, one, you can fly in a platformer. It's not limited by anything. You can just get up and go whenever you need to. Two, you have more than one hit, which was actually like moderately, not revolutionary necessarily, but it was novel for its time. Because if you think of the earliest platformers, you have one hit, or like Mario has two if you get an item in between, that type of thing. And the levels are usually fairly straightforward. The reason I give it a little bit more credit is that they did the like Sonic the Hedgehog top path, bottom path type thing before Sonic did.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't nearly as fleshed out as it was in the Genesis original Sonic game, but it is present. It's like, oh, you can take like this path, which is a little bit harder, but gives you a reward at the end. But most of them are just going to spit you out at the same place either way. But I'm also not going to argue that the game isn't dead simple, because like I'm pretty sure that I can go through this game in about 20 minutes at this point.
Right.
Yeah, from start to finish.
Yeah, and the game isn't like so difficult that I didn't die at all, because
Right.
I did. I kept wanting to control Kirby like you do in Smash Brothers, where you just tap A to fly, but you actually had to hit up on the D-pad, which was kind of hard for me to get used to. And there were these enemies that you had to spit air at, and you couldn't like suck them in, and those kept throwing me off.
Right. I forget, they have a name. They in fact are a spirit in the new Smash Brothers. But yeah, the ones that like they're little safe guys, and then if you try to inhale them, they turn red. Yeah. Or they turn darker. I imagine them in the 3D games, they became red.
Right.
On that note, let's talk about Kirby himself, because Kirby is one of the greatest character designs of all time. He's a pink circle with feet.
Yeah. Kirby is one of the. It's hard to like kind of describe what's good about the design, but if I should know this, but whatever company has Hello Kitty as their mascot,
Oh yeah.
whatever that company is, can't remember the name right now, but Kirby has a lot in common with those kind of character designs, and they're like a perfect embodiment of power and simplicity as a concept. Because Kirby is literally just a circle with arms and legs and a face.
Right.
But like,
Not even a complicated face either.
no, I mean not even legs. He just has feet.
Yeah.
But there's just something really likable about it, even as an adult. You know, like not even just to kids. There's just something appealing about the design.
It's super weird to see him on the box art after like years and years of associating him as like a pink thing, because he's just displayed as white on the cartridge, and it's mostly because I guess the Game Boy didn't display color, so they didn't want to make you feel like you were losing out on the cute main character in his full his glory.
Well, actually, I've heard that he's white on the cover because they couldn't decide on what color to make him. Like I think Sakurai, who created Kirby, wanted him to be pink, and someone else in the company wanted him to be yellow, and they never settled the dispute before the game like came out.
Well, I'm glad that pink won out in the end, because yellow Kirby is a little bit weird. I think there's a...
That's probably my least favorite palette for him in Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
The yellow version.
The yellow version's very strange. Also, I've heard that he like wanted to make or not wanted to, but upon like using the design for Kirby that they went with in the end, decided that like because it was easy to draw, it would be a good character design for like a kid's game, which I think tracks.
Yeah. It they always say like the best character designs have like really easily identified silhouettes, and Kirby definitely has one of those.
Oh yeah. Okay, so in addition to Kirby, I think there are a lot of other like sort of audio visual elements. I'm segueing into the fact that the music in this game is really good. But before that, I guess the easier path to take would be the enemies in this game. I feel like there are a couple that ended up being like Kirby staples going forward, but man, not all that many of them.
Yeah, I feel like they all run together in my mind, except for the bosses.
Yeah.
They were just kind of like spherical or like seed shaped or like, you know, some kind of round or oval type shape with a face on it.
Yeah, even two of the bosses are almost identical, because there's the one that spits out like the Waddle Dees. And then there's the and like just kind of swoops, and then there's the one that flies, which is, in my estimation, is the hardest part of the entire game.
The one with the cannonball?
Yeah.
Shoots. That one didn't bother me so much. The one that was tricky for me was like the two, you were like, there's like a screen with the floor.
And the guys push
the treasure chest.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to like suck one up and then get out of the way.
Right.
You know. So
he says it's hard for him. I'd like to point out, he came in while I was writing the description for the Persona 5 episode and got the game from me, and then I finished it and walked out, and he was like, "How you beat DDD?" Like, this is like a 30-minute maybe experience.
Yeah.
So it wasn't terribly difficult to shoot the treasure chest, I'm assuming.
No, but I could not do it without taking any damage, though.
Right. Yeah, the cannonball one for me is the hardest, I think, just because Kirby is larger and it feels harder to navigate.
I guess, yeah. You got the much smaller screen of the Game Boy, so it's harder. You have less time to dodge stuff.
Yeah, and they didn't, I guess, want to make the characters any smaller because it makes them kind of unrecognizable.
That's a good call.
Yeah,
like all my favorite Game Boy games have big sprites, so.
big in comparison to
Yeah, to
other
other
Game Boy. Yeah,
games, yes.
this is why we talked about Super Mario Land 2 and not Super Mario Land 1.
Right.
But yeah, so of those though, like Wispy Woods obviously becomes like a pretty common Kirby theme. Kracko, which is the name of the eyeball in the cloud guy, is also like a fairly common Kirby thing now. And DDD has gone on to become one of the main characters of the game. I believe that the treasure chest pushing dudes are called the Poppy Bros.
Of course they are.
Yeah. And those do exist, but mostly they're the variety that just throw bombs at you. But yeah, the bosses live on, but most of Waddle Dees, Waddle Doos, all totally a thing. But like, I haven't seen like those little face masks that turn around in a while.
Yeah. And I really like DDD's design as like his sprite in this game. He's really distinct, and I don't know. It's a good use of the limited hardware. He's got like a nice standout design. I liked.
That's true. Yeah, because DDD looks significantly different than everything else in the game, and you also fight him in like a boxing ring, which is strange. But I think overall, yeah, like he stands out. You can easily tell, at the very least, you can tell that he's something wearing a robe. Maybe not a penguin, but you kind of pick
He
up.
Looks enough like a penguin.
He's got like a beak, like a definite beak. But yeah, overall though, I think the game visually looks real good for '93.
Yeah, for sure. Like, one thing I guess we could get into is, I think this is true of Kirby games just in general, with maybe the exception of some of the newer ones. But like, levels in Kirby always are like, I think one of the big reasons I've never been able to get into the series is I always feel like levels in Kirby games don't really have like much of a sense of place. They always kind of feel like they're made of blocks.
Right.
And the levels are usually so easy, at least in the earlier parts of the game. But in this game's case, that's the whole thing. You just kind of run through them, and when you think back on the game, you can't really remember the levels at all. And that's always been a huge roadblock for me and getting into Kirby.
Right.
Because I've played now this one. Some of Crystal Shards, that's a 64 one, right? Yeah, and Kirby's Epic Yarn, which that doesn't apply to, but I also didn't finish that either, so never really clicked with Kirby.
Individual Kirby levels, I agree with that. Like, I think that, particularly, like, using Kirby 64 as an example, because that's probably the one I'm second most familiar with, you'll go to these different places that have like a very clear theme to them. Like you get a Shiver Star or whatever, and it's icy. There it is. And the enemies and everything will change to match that, but then individual levels within that location all just kind of feel the same. Not necessarily that the challenge is the same, but like visually they don't do anything to mix it up. This game really only has like one-ish level per area, and they're given these names like that are crazy and are just like they're dreamland names, and they all have multiple syllables. And so it's like kind of difficult to place, and also they don't mean anything to you, so it doesn't signify that the place that you're going is different than the place before. So like the difference between Castle Low and whatever else, the high version of it is that one of them has water in it and the other one's in the clouds.
Right.
And that one, like, I like the cloud level because it does look visually different and has some more like labyrinthine design, I guess you could say.
And another thing that I noticed while playing through this is that it shares a sprite with Mario Land 2, which was the first game we played for this series. There's like an underwater little spike ball, like with the face, like a mine, I guess, with a little face on it. And it's the exact same sprite from Mario Land 2. And I was like, oh, neat. I didn't know which game came first, but these came out right around the same time.
Very close.
But and the physics, I guess you would say, I don't know much about game development on the Game Boy. Felt like the swimming mechanics felt really similar to Mario 2 to me as well, and I started to wonder if they shared an engine. But I did not look into it.
Yeah, these came out like less than 6 months apart. So.
Yeah, so it's decently likely that could have happened.
Yeah, as far as like swimming in video games as a whole is like a crapshoot as to how it's gonna work. Mm-hmm. Kirby's feels even stranger than most because it lacks like a sense of actual danger to be underwater. Because you just sort of like there's not a difference. In Mario, you went underwater and fish swam at you because fish swim. And in Kirby, everything can fly already.
Right.
So going underwater, it's exactly the same. There are, in fact, more stationary enemies underwater than there are above it. And then they're, like, weird gated, like, death zones in, like, those little... I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, did it control, like, literally exactly the same as flying when you were underwater?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's what but you can't inhale, though.
Right.
If you exhale, you can't inhale again, which I thought was a nice detail.
I agree. Yeah, because if you inhaled, theoretically, one, you would drown.
Right.
Or two, you would inflate with air and then just, like pop back to the surface. That would be interesting. I wonder if they've done that in any other Kirby games. Kirby doesn't really get, like, inflated anymore.
No.
Which is unfortunate for all of us with inflation fetishes.
Yeah, it's not nearly as extreme anyway.
Yeah, he just like puffs up.
Just a little.
What were we talking about?
The underwater mechanics worworked.
Oh, yeah, well that's...
You could not inhale.
We're super done with the water mechanics part. Because it's realistically it's only in there a little bit. There's very little as far as like differences in kind go for your platforming. What I do like about the levels as like a little bit of a let's give them a pat on the back, even 25 years later, is I love that you can jump, or that they're like, I love that you can jump. It's crazy. I love that there are, like, secrets in this game that aren't really... I feel like they weren't necessary, given the nature of how simple this game is. But there will be just, like, hey, a door. Or, like, you know, go this special way and you'll find a door that goes to another secret. And they just sort of, like, replenish your health or give you an extra life or something like that. Or occasionally a power-up. And I really hate when games, like... old games did this, where you would go out of your way to get a power up and then it would wear off by the time it became like relevant. This game does that like with most of its power ups. There's only like one or two that are like universally useful. Also, I wonder if this is my child brain bleeding in. I need to get your opinion on this.
Okay.
The power ups, were you able to tell what they were?
I don't even remember any other than the leaf.
Oh yeah, the one that makes you fly. Was
there an invulnerability one?
Yeah, there's an invulnerability one that I don't recall what it looks like.
I am totally blanking on what they look like.
There's also one that kills all the enemies that are on the screen.
I don't think I ever got that one.
Okay, when you pick it up, Kirby just like there's like a trill little song, like Kirby's just shrieking.
Okay.
And I believe, and this is like going off of memory from a memory of a third memory, but I'm pretty sure that's actually a microphone. But in my head, I cannot see it as anything but a cowboy hat on like a little stand. Like a tiny cowboy hat. And that's just always what I imagine it is.
Oh, I've got to Google an image of Kirby power-ups. I can imagine from that description, though, that it is probably a microphone.
Yeah, like
Cowboy hat on his stand is way.
okay, I mean, it wouldn't make
better.
any sense as to
No.
like why it would kill them, and it makes sense with the idea of him like,
Singing.
yeah, which I'm guessing, yeah, it appears exclusively in Castle Low and Float Islands. Is a powerful item that Kirby can utilize. Man, interesting. I wish there was just like a list of the items in Kirby games that I could pull up.
Yeah, it's
reasonably.
weird. I bet you could find like a million different sources to do that exact thing for Mario, but not for Kirby. Get on that internet.
Yeah, come on, guys. Because it's just like, and that's the thing. Like, if I wanted to find out, is this a cowboy hat? I couldn't search that and figure it out.
You gotta tweet it, Sakurai.
Right, yeah. I'd be like, hey, just it's like a cell phone picture of the game screen. And then just like, what is this thing? Is it a cowboy hat? I've always been wondering. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I had the exact same issues with several. Like the 2 health pickups are, I think, water bottles. Like they have they're like that big, have a label on them, but I had no idea what that was when I played them when I was a kid.
Right.
And like in my mind, it still just looks weird to me.
Yeah. Reminds me of like the little capsule from Smash Brothers.
Yeah, maybe that actually might be what it is. I don't know.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've remembered the thing that I was gonna say earlier, which is, how do you feel about the when you're falling, you tilt downwards like mechanic?
I think it's the best thing in this game.
Really?
Maybe not the best. I do really like it. I don't know what you wouldn't like about it.
I couldn't get like a handle on exactly how like you did it. Like I would always just do it on accident. I don't know how it works.
My understanding of it is it just happens after you fall for a set distance. You'll tilt forward, and I believe that if you hit an enemy from the top while falling forward, it will damage them without hurting you.
Right, that seems to be the case, but
Yeah.
the fact that you can't directly control it yourself made it feel weird, and like I wasn't understanding it, I guess.
Right. I just think it's like not. It's supposed to be like the alternative way to beat enemies in the game, as opposed to just inhaling them. Which I'm imagining there are probably some enemies that that allows you to kill them without having another item nearby or something. But I won't swear to that because I've never tried it. I realize I present myself as like the expert on this game, and am just not. I've just played it a whole bunch.
Right.
Other than that, we covered all the mechanics, actually. There's jump, there's inhale, there's no copy ability in this game. There's a fall.
That was surprising to me.
Oh, yeah.
No
the
copy ability in this game.
Yeah, the copy abilities didn't show up until... I don't know. I don't remember. I think it was that SNES one. Nightmare in Dreamland.
Yeah, I think that I read that somewhere.
There-
That sounds right to me.
Yeah. There were... like animal companions in Kirby's Dream Land 2, but I only played that for the first time like 2 years ago. So I don't know. Oh yeah, I should mention before we wrap up that there is a second game playthrough that's harder.
Right. Yeah, I got that message when I finished it, and read on the Wikipedia page that there was a hard mode.
Right.
But I did not try it out.
It is significantly more challenging, but like it still isn't. It's not exactly. It's not Dark Souls.
Right.
It's not.
You
It's
gotta
not.
squeeze in that mention.
You gotta inhale that. Never mind. Yeah, it's a little tougher, and I mean, actually, I would say it's substantially tougher, but it isn't so hard that it would discourage you from playing through it.
Right, and especially since the game's so short.
Yeah. But man, that cannonball boss is even way fucking harder in hard mode. Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about really is just the music is real good, and it's amazing that it was written on a Game Boy.
Right.
Because most, if not every single track in the game is still used in some capacity now, like whether it's in Kirby or spin-offs or Smash Brothers or any of that.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of Game Boy music that's like that. Probably cliched to say, but like I feel like that limitation of like early game music and the fact that sound took up so much space, so it had to all be really simplistic and loop a lot, and they had to use all these little tricks to like gut things out of the tracks to make them fit on the cartridge. But like that limitation bred a lot of creativity, and I feel like that's something that should be injected into some modern game music, because I really don't like the trend of, at least the trend that I've perceived anyway in modern game music, is to like emulate film scores. And you end up with music that maybe fits the scene well and is well composed and everything, but you don't remember it in the way that you remembered older video game music, and it feels like it's lacking in that way.
Yeah. And you can definitely tell, like, even because Nintendo used to be like the kings of that kind of a thing.
Well, because of old Koji
because
Kondo.
of Koji Kondo. But even they are now more often reusing previous music and remixing it than they are actually composing new stuff. Though Nintendo's like current compositions tend to be like weird samba tracks, and like I kind of love it, but it's also like way different than what it was in the past.
Yeah.
It's like if your favorite band like dropped all of its members and reformed with new members and they were a salsa band now. You'd be like, huh, okay.
Nintendo gonna Nintendo.
They really are. So, do we do final thoughts on these, or do we? I kind of forget.
I think we kind of like basically sum up our thoughts because that's just what we do.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go first. My statement at the beginning still rings very true. Playing this for the first time now is a weird experience. I don't really know how to feel about it. I'm sure I would have liked this a lot as well if I played it as a kid. But I think the big thing for me is it's weird that this game like caught on and became popular, but I'm glad it did, because I do like Kirby as a character, and I really want to like Kirby games. I just never really, I think I missed the boat. I never played a Kirby game as a kid, so, but I still can appreciate what it stands for, the idea of having like a action platforming game for kids that's accessible, like easy to pick up, hard to master kind of thing that Nintendo does a lot already anyway.
Yeah.
So I came away from this, I guess, feeling fairly positive. Like it felt good to control in a way a lot of Game Boy games don't, and I did enjoy the like 40 minutes it took to play through it. So
yeah, I played this when I was like 5 for the first time, I would say. I think that probably has a lot to do with the way that you're going to receive it. If you are a parent, then I would totally recommend giving this to a very young child, because this is the kind of game, there are two sides to this, I think. One, it's easy enough for a kid to be able to complete the game, but also, depending on the age of the child, a lot of like younger kids have this weird obsession with doing the same things over and over again. And I think that Kirby's Dream Land is also really good because it's how short it is.
That's a really great point that I had not considered at all.
Yeah, you could, like I did, just play through this game dozens of times because it's such a short experience, and it helps with that sort of like want to finish something feeling. I don't know. That's sort of what I took away from it, and I carried that on through my entire life, pretty much.
It's
so
the comfort food of video games.
Yeah, and it's so short that I can just easily
Yeah.
just do it and then go back to whatever else I was doing. It's good shit.
Mm-hmm.
Good shit. Thanks for listening to NoClip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, you bastard. What are we talking about?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think we were talking about doing Octo expansion, but we never contacted JJ about it.
Let's get a hold of JJ. Do you think I can
call him?
I want to do it and put him on the podcast.
Hold on, let's put both our mics on omnidirectional to get the highest chance of hearing JJ.
Yes, Chad.
Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Am I now? Okay.
Yeah, hold on. Does this go up louder? Can I make it? Nope. That's as much as we're gonna get. So.
Hold on. If this is for recording, I know. Have you tried FaceTime audio? It's so much better in terms of quality.
I have not actually.
But this isn't that important, so.
Okay, fine.
We will keep that in mind if we ever do this again.
Yeah, which hopefully we will not. We are recording a NOCLIP Pocket right now.
Are you?
Yeah, and so my question is, are you going to be free, within the next, 3 weeks or so to talk about Octo expansion?
I am absolutely free to do so.
All right, that's what we were hoping. So that thanks for listening to NOCLIP Pocket this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to talk about Splatoon 2's Octo expansion with special guest JJ Artemis, who you might know from this podcast.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah, see you later, JJ.
Bye, JJ.
Until that time, let's change our microphones back.
So professional?
I know.
This is why we put this stuff in the Pocket episodes.
It's true. Yeah, this is the trash bin of our comedy. Until that time, if you want to get a hold of us, all of our contact information is on noclippodcast.com. You can find our email address, all of our old episodes, both of Pocket and of the main podcast, which if you're listening to this on a podcatcher, you're probably sick of hearing because it all goes to the same feed. Go to our YouTube channel, give us a big thumbs up, and listen to Persona 5 episode, because why not? Just came out. Smash Brothers is next for that one. I'm still talking, though we're completely out of stuff to say. I texted him first, because I don't just want to, call somebody and be like, hey, how are you? This is what phones are for. Now that I'm thinking about it.
That's exactly why.
You could just...
JJ's not going to be like, that inconsiderate bastard calling me on my phone.